Consequences of the falling birth rate. Singapore has a booming economy and needs a large supply of labor, which the declining birth rate could not provide. This means that there was not enough talented people to sustain Singapore's economic development. This means that transnational companies would relocate to other countries where there's an adequate labor force, and this could lead to mass unemployment. Due to the baby boom in the post-war years and the declining birth rate in the 1980s, the population is lopsided, with lesser younger people and a proportionately larger amount of elderly. This means that Singapore is now facing an aging population. People working will have to pay higher taxes to care for the elderly, and this might lead some of the workers to migrate overseas so that in search of a better life where they do not have to pay such high taxes. The falling birth rate has also affected Singapore's defence. With lesser men available for the national service, Singapore's defence is weakened. In 1984, Lee Kuan Yew was concerned at how lesser and lesser graduate women were getting married and having babies. Studies then indicated that the parent's education level had an impact on the child's intellectual level. Therefore, the government offered incentive to graduate women who married graduate men and had children. This policy caused a lot of unhappiness among Singaporeans, as they felt that it was discriminatory towards non-graduates, and Singaporeans felt that everybody should be treated equally. The non-graduates had been afraid that their needs would be neglected because of this policy. As a result of the massive outcry and a great loss of popular support during the general elections in 1984, this policy was withdrawn after only 1 year in 1985. 3 or more only if you can afford it. In 1987, the government changed its policy from stop at 2 to 3 or more only if you can afford it, in hopes of getting the replacement rate back up to the ideal 2.1. The government placed an emphasis on affordability as Singapore was facing an economic recession and many people had lost their job. The government wanted families to only have more children if they could afford it, as social problems could arise if families could not bring up their children. The government also changed their policy and allowed Medisave to cover the delivery charges of the first 3 children. The government's measures had failed. The cost of bringing a child up was too expensive for most Singaporeans. This was due to foreign-made levies, school fees and tutor fees. Medical costs had also gone up, and most Singaporeans had funds in their Medisave to cover only 1 or 2 hospitalizations. Changing lifestyles also contributed to the falling birth rate, as more Singaporeans preferred to only have 1 child or stay single. This was so that they could have more money to spend on themselves. Pro-family packages. In 2004, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong announced packages of new marriage and parenthood measures to encourage more couples to have more children. The packages meant that in the past, only fathers could make medical claims for their children from their employers. Now, women have that right as well. 2. Grandparents who helped take care of a couple's children had a tax relief of $3,000. 3. 3. 5-day work week for the civil service to allow for better work-life balance. 4. Maternity leave was extended to 12 weeks. Attracting foreign talent. Singapore's declining birth rate made it so that Singapore could no longer produce the talent it needed locally. As a result, the government decided to relax its stringent immigration policies and encourage more foreigners to migrate to Singapore. In 1989, the new immigrants were given housing subsidies and extremely attractive education packages for their children in order to encourage them to come to Singapore. The measure was successful as many foreigners arrived in Singapore and helped to boost the economy. However, this also caused social strains. There were so many foreigners migrating to Singapore that Singaporeans began to feel the squeeze in housing, education, healthcare, transportation, and jobs. The government's failure to improve the infrastructure resulted in lower living standards. The arrival of many foreigners who were willing to take up jobs for much lower pay also depressed the wages of Singaporeans.